The Flea smear against Ukraine by Russia backfires. A colleague of a Russian governor's brought to his attention an issue with Russia's infrastructure after he made a comment condemning gender-neutral restrooms in Ukraine. Russian forces have observed gender-neutral restrooms in Ukrainian schools, according to St. Petersburg Governor Alexander Beglov's January 13 Telegram post. Thus they understand very well what Russia is fighting for. There's no need to explain what values we're defending to these guys who, instead of 2 bathrooms in schools, one for girls and one for boys, have seen 3 bathrooms, one for girls, one for boys, and one for gender-neutral people, Beglov wrote, mentioning that he had seen wounded Russian soldiers in hospitals and discussed the matter. End this conversation, when you are understood just as you are, my spirit thawed. Beglov stated that discussing political subjects is the most natural way to converse with combatants. According to Russian President Vladimir Putin, his special military operation in Ukraine was justified in February 2022 by the premise of denazifying the country and its leadership. In response to Beglov's comments, Boris Vishnevsky of the St. Petersburg Legislative Assembly used Telegram to declare that a quarter of Russians do not have centralized sewerage, citing numbers from Rosstat, the Russian National Statistics Agency. And basically, it is hard to imagine something more gender-neutral than a backyard latrine-style toilet, according to him. During a meeting with local officials on Tuesday, Putin seemed to add his voice to the chorus, implying that the availability of gender-neutral restrooms overseas is a major draw for Russians considering emigration. Moreover, a large number of individuals who departed from Russia for different causes are either already back or are considering making a comeback. People who hold conventional, average human values find it extremely challenging to survive in this kind of environment, evidently confused about the rationale for the invasion. Putin stated at the same conference that Russia would not relinquish conquered land in Ukraine. As for this negotiation process, it is an attempt to encourage us to abandon our conquests from the past year and a half, added Putin. This can't be done. Both the Ukrainian elite and their Western counterparts are aware that this is an impossibility, and a seemingly linguistic shift about the rationale for his full-scale invasion. Vladimir Putin has stated that Russia was hesitant to cede land in Ukraine that had been conquered. Putin has defended Russia's involvement in the conflict on multiple fronts, including the need to defend Russian speakers in the Donbass region, prevent NATO from encroaching on Russian territory, and, most controversially, the idea that Russia is denazifying Ukraine, a charge that both Kiev and the rest of the world have rejected. State media agencies officially refer to the war as a special military operation, although Putin first used the term war in remarks to reporters at the end of 2022, 10 months into the fight. Thus the Kremlin has been keeping a tight lid on portrayals of the war, though academics and world leaders have long drawn the conclusion that Putin's invasion was motivated by imperial ambitions. Neither Putin nor the Kremlin have officially acknowledged this. On Tuesday, however, Putin seemed to change his tone, suggesting that this was the case. Regarding this negotiation process, it is an effort to have us give up our victories of the last 15 months, Putin informed the leaders of municipalities around the nation in remarks published on the Kremlin website. In response to their questions, this can't be done. The Ukrainian elite and the Western elite alike know full well that this is not going to happen, he added. Putin openly spoke about what Russia conquered in Ukraine instead of his usual rhetoric about liberation or denazification, stated Anton Gashenko, an advisor on Ukrainian domestic affairs, who shared a videotape of Putin's remarks on X, previously Twitter. Would you call that an intentional slip of the tongue? Do you have any ideas? I think theirs was a good chance this slip of tongue was intended for foreign leaders to show that he won't agree to give up the Crimea land bridge. Stand by Ukraine was one of several thread starters started by the video, which had over 260,000 views as of Wednesday morning. As one commenter put it, Putin was indicating that his real reason for the invasion was conquest and territory. The reasons why peace discussions are impossible were elaborated upon by Putin on Tuesday. These so-called peace formulas, which are talked about in the West and in Ukraine, are a continuation of the implementation of the decree of the President of Ukraine banning negotiations with Russia, according to him. These are prohibitive requirements for the negotiation process. According to Gustav Gressel, a senior policy fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations, who spoke to Newsweek, Putin's overall strategy is to win a long war of attrition. This means that Putin has no interest in engaging in negotiations. That's the problem for Western politicians, stated the politician. They always base their decisions on their own principles, which is that conflicts should be resolved swiftly. Putin doesn't think that way. He prefers to win conflicts rather than terminate them. If Russia is on the losing side in a long war, then the dream of the Europeans and the America and the Biden administration will come true because once down the losing side, they will cry for negotiations, stated Gressel. They don't do it now because they don't think they are losing. At the World Economic Forum in Davos, President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that only a clear victory for his nation could terminate the conflict, ruling out negotiations or a truce so long as Russian forces are still stationed in Ukraine.